Hi, Dr. Yass here. In this video, I want to discuss a grouping of diagnoses which is oftentimes provided, and my great concern regarding the diagnosis given is that it kind of ends the opportunity for the individual to participate in the resolution of their symptoms because it implies that the cause is something out of the control of the individual. And this grouping of diagnoses is known as overuse syndromes. So, oftentimes, carpal tunnel syndrome, golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, runner's knee. There's lots of diagnoses which relate to this idea of an overuse syndrome. This is one of those rare occasions where the medical establishment is willing to acknowledge that the problem is muscular or musculotendinous, meaning that it's some combination of a muscle and a tendon, right? Achilles tendonitis. All these types of diagnoses relate to the idea that you're having a muscular problem. The problem is in the idea that the diagnosis implies that the problem is that the activity is too great in its demands for the force outputs of the muscles performing the activities. Overuse syndromes, meaning that somehow the activity requires too much force development for the available force output of the muscle. So if you're willing to accept this premise, then there's very limited amounts of things that can be done. One of the most obvious things in the promotion of the medical establishment is, well, the classic concept, if it hurts, don't do it anymore. Oh, you get golfer's elbow from doing something, playing golf? Okay, well, stop playing golf or limit the amount of golf, right? If you get carpal tunnel syndrome symptoms from being on a computer too much, oh, get wrist braces and get a different kind of computer and change your desk. And it's lots of things relating, or limit how often you stay on the computer, right? If you get it's pain around your kneecap and it's called runner's knee, oh, limit how much you run or buy a new sneaker, or it's always some extraneous thing relating to how you perform the activity or whether you should even perform the activity or limit your time performing the activity. But where is the premise that activity has a certain force requirement, muscles have a certain force output, and the muscles will strain if the force output of the muscles is less than the force requirement of the activities? So I would rather you change the dynamic of this situation from overuse to understrengthened. Think about the premise. Instead of saying that the force requirement of the activity is too great for the force output of my muscles, why not say the force output of my muscles is too little for the force requirements of the activities? What happens in that dynamic? Well, suddenly a level of empowerment occurs. You can certainly control the force output of your muscles by strengthening the appropriate muscles. If you take the approach that the problem that you're having in developing your symptoms is that you have a diminished force output versus an excessive force requirement, it means you get to control the circumstances. It means you're not dependent on cortisone shots, on buying braces, buying new equipment, limiting the amount of time that you do the activity, or God forbid, someone simply telling you you can't do the activity. That's the magic of the Yass method. The Yass method see things for what they are based on the empirical presentation of situations. If you type on a computer, the force requirement for the typing on the computer basically is about the same. It never changes. It doesn't vary. It's not like you're constantly changing the force requirements every time you go to type. So we know there's a fairly set amount of force requirement for typing, right? Or playing golf or tennis or crocheting or any other activity you choose to do. The activity doesn't vary that greatly. Therefore, we have to assume that there's a set force requirement. If we recognize that, then all we have to say is that if we could take our force output of all the muscles required to perform that activity and raise that force output to a greater force than the force requirement of the activity, we can perform the activity without symptom development. That's the way life works. Gravity pushes down on you, which sets the force requirement for the activity. Everything you do, you're doing against gravity. Then the muscles that are trying to perform the activity push up against gravity. So they have a force output requirement. When that force output becomes greater than the force requirement, you do your activity without symptom. So going forward, my strong suggestion to you is stop thinking things as overuse and think of them as under-strengthened. Think about how that mindset changes the options you have. Once you see it as under-strengthened, you have control over how much strength you have. You get to strengthen yourself to the level where the force output of your muscles is greater than the force requirement of your activity. And suddenly, it's not overuse. It's appropriate or adequate strength. And this goes for any activity. I don't care what the activity is. I don't care what body part's doing it. If you want to perform an activity and you're worried that doing the activity often or for a long duration is going to bother you, just strengthen yourself to the point where you could do the activity and the muscle has the capability to do the activity and you don't have symptom development. It's really just that simple. And again, I always go back to this idea. Is anybody else out there talking about this idea of altering the mindset from overuse syndrome to under-strengthened issue? I'm not familiar with that, most likely because the Yass method background is based in muscle. 98% of cases of symptoms are muscular. Well, certainly if you're treating people based on that mindset, you're probably going to have a good understanding of how to address muscular deficits. And with these overuse syndromes, it's so funny because you go to the medical establishment who, let's face it, they don't find medical causes, right? They use MRIs to find structural variations and treat structural variations. So in the rare occasion where they're actually willing to acknowledge that the issue is muscular, how the hell are they in a position to address it? It's foreign to them. So even in these situations, the best they do is give you cortisone shots and anti-inflammatories. They're not in a position to understand how to establish which muscles are responsible in being weak and creating the symptom with the activity. They don't know how to strengthen those muscles. So you're still screwed, even in these cases. I suggest to you, if you're having an overuse issue, an overuse syndrome, I suggest you get the Yass method, who will then prove to you that your problem is not overuse, but under-strengthened. Do the proper exercise, and you can be pain-free and fully functional and do that activity to your heavenly delight. If this makes sense to you and you think this video is helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you like my YouTube channel, Dr. Mitchell Yass, please subscribe to get notifications when new videos are added or when I'm live on YouTube. If you would like to get in touch with me, you could do so by emailing me at drmitch@mitchellyasta.com, or you could go to my website, livewithoutpains.com, and you can schedule a Yass Method Zoom session. You don't have to be in Jacksonville, Florida to get the Yass Method. You can get it virtually. I've treated people from multiple countries using the virtual sessions. They're highly effective. They are videotaped, so you have that going forward. Total amount of equipment needed is a resistance band and a chair. So that is the premise of today's video. Not overuse, under-strengthened. For now, this is Dr. Mitchell Yass, wishing you a pain-free, fully functional life. Bye-bye for now.